Kenya, on the margin of the World Health Summit regional meeting. This meeting actually marked an important political and institutional milestone in Africa's effort to shape a more equitable, representative, and resilient global health architecture. The Nairobi meeting actually focused on establishing political ownership, presenting the committee's mandate and roadmap, and building consensus on an African-led consultative process aligned with the Accra Reset. The Accra Reset, as we all know, is an African-led global development and economic framework, which was launched last year by His Excellency President John Mahama of Ghana. Your Excellencies, at that meeting, you agreed that Africa must transition from a passive recipient of global health decisions to a co-architect of the system that shape global health financing, access, preparedness, and accountability. The discussion further identified the need for fair representation, sustainable financing, local manufacturing capacity, tech transfer, data and product sovereignty, resilient health system, and stronger continental coordination as top priorities. Fast forward, in May 2026, on the 17th, at the margin of World Health Assembly in Geneva, the Africa High-Level Ministerial Committee, Your Excellencies, what progress have we made so far from Nairobi to Geneva? Here we are in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. In terms of progress, number one is political ownership has been secured. We have alignment of our 55 member states as articulated by His Excellency the DG of Africa CDC, not just the ministers of health, we also have the ministers of finance fully on board and other related sectors. Number two, we have operationalized the structure of that committee around 6 work streams. The structure of that committee around 6 work streams with clearly defined objectives, moving beyond just declaration and decision of February 2026 by our head of state and government. We have also strengthened our negotiation position, especially around the pathogen access and benefit sharing. As we have heard from the DG, there can be no pandemic agreement without a conclusive pathogen access and benefit sharing that speaks to the position of 55 member states, 1.5 billion people. We have also put in place a financing governance mechanism, as far as this reform of global health architecture is concerned. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are as far as those two convenings are concerned. And today, we are here for the third meeting of this high-level committee, where we'll be looking at those critical issues that are emerging as far as global health space is concerned. Number one is to really look at what is new, what is emerging as far as that global health space is concerned. Number two is around pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response, which is also a critical pillar of what the committee seeks to do. Where are we and what do we need to do as far as the ravaging ongoing Ebola outbreak in DR Congo is concerned. Number three is to look at the local manufacturing capacity on the continent. How do we move from 1% to 60% as requested by our head of state and government? And at the end of all this, we will come up with what are those priority actions that we need to advance, beyond just sitting in the room and discussing towards concrete actions, as far as our member states are concerned. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this session, I think there will be, invitation for our ministers, to weigh in and clearly define, some of these issues, especially around the ongoing transition as far as global health institutions are concerned. How do we engage in that particular space? The PAPS discussion, is still ongoing. How do we really come up with a safe space to really discuss this issue and clearly concretize the continental position as far as finalizing that PAPS is concerned? So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Let me stop here and hand over back to the moderator. Thank you.
Merci, Dr. Tajidé, pour le point sur les réalisations. C'est la situation des réalisations depuis les réunions de Nairobi et Genève. Et pour le moment, j'invite Dr. Ayad, sous-directeur général de l'OMS à Genève, à présenter au comité des informations sur le groupe de travail conjoint chargé de la réforme de l'architecture mondiale de la santé. Dr. Bruce, vous disposez de 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre. Peut-être vous pouvez confirmer, je suis bien entendu? Vous pouvez me sentir sans problème?
Vous entendez?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
OK. Vous avez la parole pour 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Ministers of Health, Ministers of Finance, Your Excellency Jean Kasaya, Excellency Madam Commissioner, it's a tremendous honor to have the opportunity to help you kick off the discussions today at this third meeting of the Africa High-Level Ministerial Committee on Global Health Architecture Reform. I'm delighted on behalf of the co-chairs of the joint process that was launched at the World Health Assembly to provide you an update on the context for the joint process, what's happened since the May Assembly, but most importantly, the engagement with this committee as we move forward, which will be absolutely vital. With your agreement, Mr. Chair, I would like to provide a few slides to help with that orientation. You should be able to see my slides now. With this first slide, I would like to remind us all of the context when we talk about the global health architecture. We speak often of the problems, but the success under your leadership in Africa in advancing health over the past 25 years is simply extraordinary. Life expectancy increased by over 10 years. You've seen tremendous gains in under 5 mortality, maternal mortality, all of these facts that you know. But the sad reality is that many of us, your partners who've worked with you and that constitute the global health architecture in support of you, we have not kept pace with the national sovereignty agenda, the regional capacities, the changing disease burdens, the advances in science and technology, and the contracting financing, certainly at an international level, as you know so well, and which underpins your work as a committee. Africa's leader, of course, as we've heard in the opening statements, these excellent opening statements, have been driving global health architecture reform. This is recognized, this is appreciated, and this must be built on as we go forward. After the Lusaka agenda kicked off in 2022, as many of you will know, there has been an explosion of global health architecture reform initiatives. There's been an explosion of papers and opinions on how to reform the global health architecture. But as we heard from Madam Commissioner and also from His Excellency Jean and His Excellency the Minister who kicked us off, today, it is really the voices of Africa through the ACRA reset and, of course, this committee, which must drive this global health agenda and the joint process. As you all know, at the World Health Assembly in May, just this few months ago, there was a recognition by you, the Ministers of Health, that we have too many different processes going on. We must bring them together into a joint process. And we don't need recommendations, we need a roadmap. What is going to be implemented by who to ensure we are working for you? So the joint process has 3 objectives that align so closely with your vision under the high-level committee. Workstream 1, what are the essential functions and who does what role at each level of the global health architecture? Workstream 2, you see on the left-hand side, which is the most vital one. Who is making the decisions and how is the architecture coordinated to work for you, who must be the decision makers, the leaders of the countries that are relying on this support. And then workstream 3, how do we get the financing right and ensure external financing is fully aligned with and responding to national priorities and is driven by national priorities, a big goal. The joint task force has been put together. You can see at the very top, strong representation from Africa in Dr. Mesebo of Ethiopia, Dr. Intaboso of Burundi. We have our co-chairs in place as of last week from China and Germany. We have 10 additional member states, and around the table, we have, of course, the key UN entities and key global health initiatives that are so important to financing and advancing this agenda. At the very bottom of this slide, you can see the key meeting, and that's why I was so keen to join today and to listen to your perspectives, ministers. The first meeting of the task force will be on 3rd and 4th September. They will spend 2 to 3 days together, and they will launch the work streams, and we need to make sure those work streams are responding to your priorities. Time is short because by May, we must put together not just recommendations. This is what's different. We must have an implementation roadmap on global health architecture reform that works for Africa's priorities, institutions, and leaders for decision by the World Health Assembly. This roadmap must be developed with Africa, as we've heard, fully in the room, fully engaged, and fully influencing. So my last 2 slides, how do we do that? First, we recognize the AHLMC's agenda is the health architecture reform agenda, as we've heard enunciated so clearly today already. So as we look forward now, I was looking at 4 ways this committee can influence and ensure, not just influence, drive, own, lead this process. First, the Joint Task Force. The work of this committee, its leadership, engaging regularly with the co-leads of the task force, with the AFRO members to ensure that you are driving this. There will be 3 work streams which will be open for participation, bringing the best and the brightest of Africa to be in there as core members to shape the options, not respond to them, to shape the options and recommendations. And then using the voice of Africa's ministries in the monthly consultations as we develop recommendations to ensure you're needing. There will be 2 big reports to the Executive Board and World Health Assembly, your World Health Assembly. And we need to ensure these are fully aligned. There will be draft versions, and this committee will be so important to say, yes, that's what we want, what we shaped, what we designed. This is, as you see at the bottom, a unique opportunity through a joint process to establish a WHO-endorsed roadmap that addresses the chronic challenges and the inappropriate state of global health architecture today when it comes to advancing Africa, to ensure this is driven by Africa's priorities, African institutions, and African leadership. Please be assured, honorable ministers, of my complete commitment and that of our organization to ensuring Africa drives this, and this committee plays a central role as we kick off just 10 days from now on the key work streams. Merci beaucoup pour l'opportunité de passer un peu de temps avec vous aujourd'hui.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Brice, pour votre présentation très claire. Je viens d'être informé que les 2 autres orateurs ne sont pas en ligne. Et à présent, donc, je vais céder la parole à mon co-modérateur, Dr. Lamine Samaté, ministre de la Santé de la Gambie, pour animer la discussion autour des 3 questions clés qui nous sont soumises aujourd'hui. Je vous passe la parole, Monsieur le ministre.
Thank you very much, Honorable Brother. Thank you for steering those conversations, very insightful. We've heard from the various speakers, we heard the ideas. We've also heard that, yes, even though there are a lot of challenges, but there have been a lot of success stories when it comes to health systems in Africa and the outcomes, reduction in maternal mortality, under 5 mortality, and so on and so forth. So that is very good. And those things need to be strengthened. We've had a whole lot about pathogen access and benefit steering. That has become a sticky issue for the conclusion of the pandemic agreement. It is not easy, but for many people, they believe it shouldn't happen in the first place. There shouldn't be any problem. Why should there be hesitancy when it comes to the PAPs? What that points to, without preempting what the other speakers are going to say, typically is some degree of lack of trust. Because if it is something that is good for the African side, why is it not being pushed forward on the other sides? So that means the African side sometimes sees some issues with some degree of suspicion, and the fact that this is getting delayed and delayed is not encouraging. But I'll leave that to some of the speakers who are going to come. We've also know that we're expecting leadership transition when it comes to global health institutions. And certainly it is very important that Africa's voices are heard. And we equally want Africa to continue to speak with one voice. So we want to hear your perspectives when it comes to moving the health agenda of Africa forward, when it comes to the leadership transitions that we are anticipating in the very near future. We equally want to hear reactions on the statement by the WHO representative with regards to all the issues, or at least some of the issues that were discussed. But at the end of the day, we said this leadership is very critical because we fit into what eventually the heads of state decide on behalf of Africa. So at this juncture, I invite colleague ministers to have their interventions, 2 minutes per intervention, because we have other sessions. The floor is open. Let each person speaking introduce himself or herself to the audience. Thank you very much. Any speakers? Honorable ministers? Well, since they are my colleagues, if they don't speak, I will do the selection then. Thank you. Okay, we have, okay, thank you very much. The floor is yours. Yes.
Merci, Monsieur le Directeur Général de l'Africa CDC, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, distingués participants. Je suis Dr Fidèle, ministre de la Santé publique du Burundi, et je voudrais saluer la mise à jour qui vient de nous être présentée sur l'évolution du processus de réforme de l'architecture mondiale de la santé depuis Nairobi et Genève. Pour le Burundi, ces avancées sont porteuses d'espoir, mais elles nous rappellent également la responsabilité qui est la nôtre en tant qu'Africains. Nous nous félicitons particulièrement de la mise en place du groupe de travail conjoint de l'OMS sur la réforme de l'architecture mondiale de la santé, dans lequel le Burundi, aux côtés de la République fédérale démocratique d'Éthiopie, a l'honneur de représenter le groupe africain. Nous voudrions à cette occasion renouveler notre profonde gratitude au groupe africain pour la confiance placée dans le Burundi. Nous entendons assumer cette responsabilité dans un esprit de solidarité, de concertation et de complémentarité avec l'Éthiopie afin de contribuer à porter une position africaine commune, cohérente et ambitieuse. Notre conviction demeure que cette réforme doit permettre de repositionner l'Afrique au cœur de la gouvernance mondiale de la santé. L'Afrique doit être davantage présente dans les espaces où se prennent les décisions, où se définissent les priorités, où sont mobilisées les ressources. Nous devons également veiller à ce que cette nouvelle architecture renforce le rôle de nos institutions continentales, notamment l'Union africaine et l'Africa CDC, et garantisse un financement plus prévisible et durable de la préparation et de réponse aux pandémies. Le Burundi réaffirme donc sa pleine disponibilité à contribuer activement à ce processus avec l'Éthiopie et l'ensemble du groupe africain. Notre ambition doit être une architecture mondiale plus équitable, plus inclusive et qui reconnaisse pleinement le leadership et les priorités de l'Afrique. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Burundi. Thank you very much. Yes. Let's hear from the other colleague over there before coming down to Sierra Leone. Yeah.
Excellencies, Honorable Minister, distinguished participants, I'm Florence George Samizi from Tanzania. Let me begin by congratulating African CDC for convening this important discussion at a very timely moment. We also commend African CDC for being nominated as the regional health organization in the global health architecture reform process. This is an important recognition of Africa's institutions and an important to ensure that Africa is not simply part of the conversation, but helps shape the future architecture. I also congratulate all members of the Global Health Architecture Joint Task Force on their nomination to lead this important process. The United Republic of Tanzania assures you of our full support and constructive engagement. For Tanzania, global health architecture reform is not an abstract institutional exercise. It is about how the global health system works for our people when they need it most. The timing could not be more appropriate. We are operating in a world experiencing geopolitical shifts, severe pressure on global health financing, and important discussion around the pandemic agreement, pathogenic access, benefit sharing, and its implementation, as well as amended international health regulation and the International Health Regulation States Parties Committee. Recent health emergencies, including the Ebola outbreak in our region, remind us that these are not theoretical issues. They affect lives, health system, and the ability of countries to respond quickly and effectively. Tanzania continues to join hands with our neighboring countries in supporting health and humanitarian efforts across the region. Recently, we provided health communities to the Democratic Republic of Congo and to support their ongoing response to the Ebola outbreak. We reaffirm our commitment to standing with our neighbors and providing continuous support, both now and in the future. Together, we can strengthen regional solidarity and work towards healthier and more resilient communities. So what should the future global health architecture deliver for Africa? First, Africa must speak with one voice. We need stronger African leadership and representation in global health decision-making and meaningful roles for our region institutions. Second, the architecture must be clear about who does what. We need strong complementarity between global, regional, and national institutions, less fragmentation and duplication, and financing that responds to country priorities rather than institutional priorities. Third, we must learn from our past. Africa and the global community have produced many declarations, frameworks, roadmaps, and commitment. The question now is not whether we can produce another good document. The question is whether we can secure commitments that are implemented. For Tanzania, the success of global health architecture reform will therefore be measured by action, accountability, and impact, particularly whether it is strengthen country ownership, improve access for financing and technology, and it works for all member states, including developing countries. I encourage all member states to actively participate in the monthly global consultations. I also propose that African CDC and WHO Afro convene African Ministerial of Health by November after the first draft of the task force report to allow us to collectively review the emerging recommendation and provide political guidance. Let us ensure that this reform does not simply redesign the architecture on paper, but builds a global health system that is more equitable, responsive, accountable, fit for the challenge of tomorrow. This is now our moment to turn solidarity into action and action into lasting health security for Africa. Thank you, I submit.
Thank you very much, our colleague from Tanzania. Now we have Sierra Leone take the floor. Honorable Minister Dembi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, I think I will make this short because, you know, we're bombarded with lots of solutions. The global health architecture is changing completely. Financing is changing. And there are lots of different organizations that are cropping up. In some countries, we're confused. I think it's really important that the Africa CDC and WHO representing all of the countries be able to have convening authority, be able to have a clear thought and clear process, but all of that should be anchored in the country. Because I think this problem we're trying to solve, we don't want to replace this problem with another problem. The problem we're solving is when you have a situation like an outbreak in a country, you want this country to be able to prepare for and be able to respond appropriately. So timing is of the essence. If we have a top-heavy bureaucracy that delays response, when we should be dealing with 10 cases, we end up dealing with 1,000 cases. So I'm really pleading as we look at this global architecture, let us anchor it in the country. The continent-wide organizational structures are as strong as the member states. So let's put strong emphasis in the country's capabilities and capacities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dembi. As food for thought, certainly countries' systems must be strengthened. And I think the journey has started. The coming into being of the Africa CDC is in the right direction to facilitate that, to coordinate that. Dr. Zhang, you've had the minister speak with your team. In as much as you are doing very well, but we want country systems to be strengthened so that countries can react within very short periods when they have these emergency situations. Certainly, before I hand over the mic to the next chairperson, I would just like to say, many of us believe that, oh, sorry, Kenya, oh, sorry, I missed that. Okay, so Kenya, well, we were supposed to wrap up this one, but certainly the coordinators, I think we would like to hear from Kenya. Let's give him 1.5 minutes to say something. Please go ahead. And South Africa. So after Kenya, we have South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I think we have a saying in our culture that sometimes the bird that is very close is rarely seen. Allow me to share greetings from my Minister, Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale from Kenya. My name is Dr. Omar Al-Bush. I'm Director of Health Sector Coordination and Diplomacy at the Ministry of Health, Kenya. I would like to share his intervention on his behalf. Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers of Health and Finance, representative of the Africa Union Commission and Africa CDC, the World Health Organization and World Bank, representative of the African Medicine Agency, AUDA NEPAD, and other institutions. The distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I convey warm greetings from the government and the people of the Republic of Kenya. I commend the African Union Commission, Africa CDC, the co-chairs, and the technical secretary for convening this timely session.
I understand, but we have to know.
Finding women amidst the Bundibugyo that is testing our collective readiness. Kenya stands in solidarity with the affected countries, communities, and family, and honors the courage of frontline responders. Your Excellencies, preparedness cannot depend on crisis-driven appeals, nor can response financing arrive after an outbreak has crossed borders. The AIDA health window and engagement with multilateral development banks should deliver accessible, additional, and highly concessional resources without unsustainable debt. Disbursement should be triggered rapidly by objective public health criteria and should sustain laboratories, genomic surveillance, emergency operations, workforce readiness, cross-border coordination, and resilient supply chain. Ministers of Health and Finance must reshape these instruments together, recognizing health security as a protection for lives, livelihoods, and economies. Your Excellencies, the ongoing Bundibugyo outbreak shows that control depends on a connected system, sensitive surveillance, trusted laboratories, protected health workers, infection prevention and control, safe case management, timely risk communication, community partnership, and coordinated cross-border response. Kenya is advancing local production through Kenya Biovac Institutes, our 2026 participation in the WHO, Medicines Patent Pool mRNA Technology Transfer Program in collaboration with our institutes, connects research, skills development, and manufacturing. This research to product pathway will require strong regulation, skilled workforce, and a viable product pipeline, predictable demand, and sustainable financing. Priority decisions that we expect is to adopt a common African position on governance, representation, and health security financing for engagement with WHO, World Bank, and multilateral development banks. Second, we agree on minimum standards for predictable preparedness financing and rapid disbursements, including regional public goods and cross-border threats. Third, establish continent-wide clinical trial readiness mechanism with pre-qualified sites, adaptable protocols, harmonized reviews, and emergency financing. Both require equitable access, affordability, technology transfer, and African manufacturing provision in outbreak research partnerships. Fifth, assign clear responsibilities, timelines, and reporting arrangements with progress reviewed on the next AHLMC meetings. In conclusion, Your Excellencies, the Ebola emergencies and the reform agenda are one challenge. They expose the cost of delayed financing and available countermeasures and research capacity activated too late. Kenya stands ready to work with the member states and partners for an architecture that is representative, sustainably financed, and capable of delivering for our people. Success will be measured not by declarations, but by whether the next outbreak is detected earlier, financed faster, contained sooner, and met with safe, effective countermeasures developed with African leadership. Let us leave Addis Ababa with clear decisions, named responsibilities, and urgent timetable for implementation. I thank you.
Thank you. We thank our colleague from Kenya. Now we'll have South Africa to be followed by Niger. South Africa, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I bring with me warm greetings from my minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, the Minister of Health of South Africa. As previously indicated by Minister Motsoaledi, South Africa welcomes the efforts being undertaken to reform the global health architecture. We recognize the need to shape a future architecture that aligns behind sovereign priorities and reacts timelessly to public health threats. We must eliminate duplications, solve fragmentations, and realize efficiency gains. We recognize the central role of the WHO and commit to participate robustly in the inclusive consensus building process. However, as per the Africa Group statement delivered by Zimbabwe, we remain guided by the leadership of the African Union heads of state and government. In this regard, we remain committed to the African High-Level Ministerial Council as the AU mandated body that will engage on the matters pertaining to global health architecture reforms, with a view to submitting recommendations to the AU heads of state and government. We are determined to see Africa's voice well expressed, not only in the WHO process, but in various other deeply consequential processes dealing with the future global health architecture. We call for fair representation for AU members and African institutions in multilateral bodies and global health institutions. On the IDA health window, the underlying intentions of the proposals are commendable, particularly in the context of shrinking health ODA flows and a fragmented global health financing landscape. However, there are also some important concerns and risks that need to be considered. IDA should remain a country-driven financing instrument that responds to national development priorities rather than increasingly sector-specific allocations. Although the proposal seeks to strengthen country ownership through on-budget financing, earmarking resources exclusively for health could reduce countries' flexibility to determine the allocation of scarce concessional resources in line with their own national development priorities. We are also concerned that it will pressure core IDA resources, inadvertently drive further fragmentation of the global health financing space, and exclude middle-income countries like our own. If the proposal gains traction, we must insist that World Bank governance must evolve to strengthen the participation of borrowing countries in decision-making. Finally, we emphasize that the voice of the Global South is critical, as these countries are the intended beneficiaries and primary implementers of the new IDA window. Their perspectives are essential to determine whether a new window responds to real country-level needs and would add value to, rather than duplicate or complicate existing mechanisms. I thank you.
Thank you. We thank our colleague from South Africa. Honorable Minister from Niger, there is a suggestion that we allow the next panel to start, then you will intervene and put it all together. Your interventions for this panel, and then the next one you can intervene. Is that okay with you?
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you very much, all the speakers. Wrapping it up, we all know the importance of speaking with one voice. Let us just imagine, whatever the issue is for Africa, if all of us speak with one voice, would there be anything that we wouldn't be able to do when it comes to global discussions? Probably nothing. So the challenge now is to work together to speak with one voice. And I think that journey has started, but it should be expedited so that we get the desired results in a timely fashion. At this juncture, I will hand over the mic to the Honorable Minister for Sierra Leone, our big brother, Dr. Austin Demby, to chair the next session. Thank you very much.
Should I just stay here? Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much. I think we've come to a really important segment in the discussions. I think the prior speakers have really set the stage for what happens in our respective countries. I want to start by just underscoring that an outbreak anywhere in Africa is an outbreak in all of Africa. And it could be an outbreak, a pandemic in the whole world. So taking an outbreak in a country seriously is vitally important. And let's put some perspective to it. As we speak, we're talking about 5,290 cases in the DRC. 5,290 cases in the DRC, and the numbers are ticking upwards. What does that mean? If you have a 50-seater bus, line 100 of the 50-seater buses full of people infected, that's what we're dealing with. You have over 2,500 cases. Think about it. 50-seater buses lined up full of dead people from Ebola. That's the magnitude of the problem we're dealing with. So the urgency of the response could not be more vital. I'll tell you from my personal lived experience. We were in West Africa when you had the Ebola outbreak in 2014, 2016, affecting Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. We'd never seen anything like that before. In Sierra Leone, we have close to 14,000 cases, 14,000 cases with 4,000 deaths. 14,000 cases, 4,000 deaths. In Guinea, they had about 3,600 cases. That was in 2014, 2016. Well, guess what? In February of 2021, there was a similar outbreak in Guinea again. The first time we were not prepared. But in 2021, when that outbreak occurred in Guinea, the first principle was solidarity with Guinea. It was not a Guinea problem, it was the whole world's problem. It's all of Africa's problem. Solidarity with Guinea was very, very paramount. And we put all of the resources we can to support Guinea. The second was we looked at all of the neighboring countries and we said we would deny access to this virus in our respective countries. So active surveillance to ensure that we don't let this virus jump from Guinea into our respective countries. The third was a clear commitment that any case that occurs in any of our countries will shut it down immediately by overwhelming response. With that, the outbreak lasted for about 125 days and only about 23 deaths. For me, that's a story that should be a learning experience, how we deal with these outbreaks going forward. So at this point in time, we're going to ask Dr. Wassam Mankula of the IMS to coordinate, to just tell us what the BVV response has been so far, and that will set the stage for our discussion. Doctor? Is the doctor here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Minister, and thank you. Make my mission easy with your introduction. Excellencies, Ministers of Health and Finance, Excellency, Director General of Africa CDC, Excellency, Commissioner, Representative of African Union Chairperson, and the representative from partners, all protocol observed. Greetings from North Kivu, the second largest affected province in East DRC. And let me give you quickly brief about the evolving situation of Ebola outbreak. As you know, this outbreak started in DRC, then there was spillover declared by the country on 15th of May. So far, we have around 5,400 confirmed cases in the two countries. We have more than 2,500 deaths reported so far. In terms of recoveries, we have more than 1,100 recoveries reported. Unfortunately, we lost also around 47 healthcare workers among the 167 confirmed cases among healthcare workers. Those numbers telling the story. This is the largest Ebola outbreak in DRC. This is the second largest Ebola outbreak in history. Since the declaration of this outbreak over the last 100 days, since May 15, this outbreak started with 8 cases in 3 affected health zones. 3 months later, currently we have around 5,400 cases and more than 2,500 deaths in just first 100 days. And to imagine, currently we have 6 provinces affected in DRC. And to make it closer to imagination, those 6 provinces, they are in terms of the area, geographical area, more than 36 member states in Africa. They are bigger than France, they are bigger than Spain, they are bigger than Germany. To imagine the geographical distribution of the cases in DRC. Those 6 provinces, they have population more than 38 countries in the continent. So outbreak is spreading, is gaining space, but also we are winning in some of those health zones. 3 health zones that is affected, they are no longer reported cases for more than 42 days. 5 health zones, they are no reporting cases between 21 days to 42 days. And also to check how this is fast growing outbreak. This is the fastest growing ever Ebola outbreak that we have ever seen. If you can see the total number of cases, total number of deaths reported in the first 13 weeks, and we compared them with the largest Ebola outbreak previously. This is by far 9.7 times number of the cases reported in West Africa. This is 7.1 more this is reported in West Africa in the first 13 weeks. We are not only fighting the virus. Our battle here is extend beyond the virus. Virus may be just one fight, but community mistrust, this is a big issue that we are facing here. And we don't believe this community trust, this is not something given, but it's built over time. And unfortunately, the people here learned this community mistrust over years. They are looking for people coming from outside with a lot of suspicions, because they learned this over time. People coming from outside, they are coming to steal their minerals. People coming from outside, that they are supposed to protect them. Unfortunately, as you know, East DRC, this is the capital of sexual exploitation and harassment. Some of those international people that coming, either under UN or international organization, they were involved in the past in sexual exploitation and harassment. So this is contributing to lost the trust that we are trying now to engage the community to build this trust. Treatment capacity also, strength. With this growing outbreak quickly, and we have limited bed capacity in some of the area like North Kivu, sometimes we have bed occupancy around 137% bed occupancy rates. So while there was increase in number of beds available in recent weeks to reach 1,000 beds, our estimation we need between 2,000 to 3,000, especially with new strategies that will be adopting to increase the level of suspicion. Cross-border mobility, this area on the border with Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, South Sudan, and also Central African Republic. And as you know, mobility, those are the same people living in the border, same tribes. This week, they have the market this day in this country. The following day, the market is another country. So there is cross mobility between them, which increases the possibility of spreading across member states. Contact follow-up, still one of the challenges that we're facing. More workforce that is needed to be deployed. Strong gaps when it comes to IPC, safe and dignified barrier, and also security situation. This is also one of the big challenges that we're facing, especially when we speak about North Kivu, where we are currently present. Progress made so far, high-level political engagement at all levels, ministerial level, even engaging Excellency's President and the Africa CDC called for high-level presidential virtual meeting to ensure the continental solidarity. Declaration of Public Health Emergency of Continental Security by Africa CDC, same by WHO for Public Health Emergency of International Concern. We activated Continental IMST to coordinate the response, deployed more than 300 tons of medical commodities and supplies, increased diagnostic capacity from 2 labs at the beginning to now 19 labs, plus 2 mobile labs with capacities more than 3,000 tests can be conducted per day, in addition to research and development for medical countermeasure clinical trial currently going on. For financial element, so far we have pledges, around $1.6 billion pledges from different countries and donors. 47% has been dispersed either to the countries directly or to implementing entities. We thank our member state and also the African solidarities. African Union member state pledges around $110 million pledges for Ebola response. And while the outbreak is evolving, the government of DRC adopted 6 strategic shifts with support from Africa CDC and different partners, mainly village-centered response. This is to gain the trust of the communities, also expanding the access of essential health services and make it for free for the affected communities, in addition to protocol governed use for the Ervebo vaccine, and also expanding the use of treatment under clinical trial and also under compassionate use, management of the humanitarian issues, and the last one, strong coordination and financial accountability, where Africa CDC, in coordination with WHO, signed by the government to take the leadership in coordinating the partners' support. Excellencies, this outbreak, it's not just a simple Ebola outbreak. It's a test for Africa collective health security. This outbreak is testing our continental coordination, response architecture, our preparedness capacity. It continues to test our health financing, digital transformation, and R&D. So let's use this outbreak to have stronger health architecture in Africa. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Makula. Again, I think you paint a very clear picture of what we are confronting, and it's not over yet, and the trajectory is moving in the wrong direction. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to see how we could rally and be able to help DRC contain this outbreak, even as we prepare from our respective countries. At this point, we have about 15 minutes, is that correct? Yeah. So we have 3 major questions we want to answer today. The first is, how do we stop this outbreak? I think it's very clear. You've heard some of the preceding discussions. You've heard the IMST's report. And I think we have, from our vantage points, we have some clear ideas as to how we could stop this outbreak. So please, you're welcome to share your experience with it. The other is, how do we prevent this outbreak from spreading to other countries? I think it's 2 major questions that we want you to answer today. There will be a third one, but let's see how we do with the first 2. Because of the limited time we have, we'll limit it to maybe a minute and a half for your interventions. Please be as constructive, as contributory as possible. Who will go first? Yeah? You wave your flag so we'll see. Is it more Niger? After Niger, who's after? Niger, Algeria, Liberia. Let's take these 3 first. Niger, Algeria, Liberia. Niger, over to you.
Merci beaucoup, honorable ministre, mesdames, messieurs les ambassadeurs, monsieur le directeur Africa CDC, mesdames, messieurs, chers invités, je suis le médecin colonel-major Garba Hakim, ministre de la Santé du Niger. Je prends la parole au nom des pays membres de la Confédération des Sahel pour faire une brève intervention par rapport à notre sujet. D'abord, je voudrais, au nom de mes collègues, saluer l'Africa CDC pour avoir organisé donc la présente rencontre, qui est un cadre d'échange qui va nous permettre d'avancer en ce qui concerne la prévention, la préparation et la riposte aux épidémies. Au-delà de la pandémie d'Ebola pour laquelle nous avons partie des précautions au niveau donc, des pays membres de la Confédération des Sahel. Et nous avons renforcé notre dispositif en ce qui concerne la prise en charge de certaines recrudescences, donc de certaines pathologies, de certaines urgences au niveau du Sahel, notamment les urgences en ce qui concerne la diphtérie, la rougeole, la méningite, pour lesquelles nous sommes en train donc de faire des efforts pour pouvoir donc circonscrire cette situation. Et d'ailleurs, nous avons, dans le cadre donc, du renforcement de la surveillance de ces épidémies, nous sommes en train de travailler avec les pays voisins aussi pour pouvoir faire une surveillance transfrontalière avec certaines unités qui sont en train d'être mises en place, non seulement avec les pays du Sahel, mais aussi avec l'Algérie et d'autres pays voisins, donc des pays membres de la Confédération des États du Sahel. Certains défis se posent à nous, notamment dans le cadre donc, de la préparation au riposte. Et c'est vrai que beaucoup d'efforts ont été faits, donc, pour lesquels je ne peux pas m'étaler compte tenu du temps qu'il fait, le petit temps qu'on nous a attribué pour cette intervention. Mais des efforts sont en train d'être faits pour circonscrire cette situation. Et c'est pourquoi, pour pouvoir voir clair, nous sollicitons que Africa CDC, que le directeur fasse en tout cas une mission au niveau donc, des pays du Sahel pour qu'on puisse vraiment discuter, voir comment Africa CDC peut supporter les pays du Sahel, surtout en ce qui concerne la mise en place des centres de surveillance épidémiologique dont nous sommes vraiment en train de travailler là-dessus. Ça va nous permettre de mieux circonscrire ces préoccupations d'urgence. Comme on le sait, ces épidémies n'ont pas de frontières. Donc, je voudrais, au nom des pays membres des États de la Confédération des Sahel, saluer et nous soutenons également donc, les efforts fournis par le comité pour les réflexions menées sur la préparation et la riposte aux épidémies. Mesdames, Messieurs, je vous remercie pour la parole donnée.
Thank you very much. Niger, we'll hear from Algeria.
Merci, honorable ministre. Bon après-midi à tous les collègues présents ici. Permettez-moi de me présenter. Je suis le Dr Mohamed Khaled, ambassadeur d'Algérie à Addis Abeba et représentant permanent auprès de l'Union africaine. Je souhaiterais avant tout vous transmettre les salutations de votre frère, monsieur le ministre de la Santé. Chers collègues, pour réagir un petit peu à ce deuxième segment qui est très important et d'actualité. L'Algérie tient tout d'abord à remercier la présidence du comité ministériel africain de haut niveau sur la réforme de l'architecture sanitaire mondiale et Africa CDC également pour l'organisation de cette importante réunion. La situation actuelle nous rappelle que la préparation et la réponse aux urgences sanitaires doivent être considérées comme une priorité permanente de l'action africaine et non comme une réponse ponctuelle aux crises. L'action africaine doit être engagée de manière beaucoup plus pratique sur le terrain, sinon tous ces engagements demeureront des vœux pieux. L'expérience des épidémies d'Ebola et des autres urgences sanitaires montre que notre efficacité collective repose sur le renforcement des capacités continentales en matière de surveillance épidémiologique, de diagnostic, de laboratoire, de ressources humaines, de coordination transfrontalière et d'accès rapide aux contre-mesures médicales. Pour l'Algérie, cette préparation doit avant tout s'appuyer sur le renforcement des capacités africaines et sur une coopération continentale renforcée. L'Algérie considère également que la sécurité sanitaire ne peut être durable sans des capacités africaines de production. C'est à cet égard que mon pays a fait le choix de développer une industrie pharmaceutique permettant de réduire la dépendance extérieure et de garantir la disponibilité des produits essentiels. Si je prends la citation ou l'intervention du directeur de CDC Afrique, il a rappelé que l'Algérie aujourd'hui est l'un des rares pays à produire plus de 80% de ses besoins en produits de santé. Et je confirme cet élément-là. Donc, nous souhaitons, pour répondre à la question du modérateur, nous souhaitons que cette expérience puisse être davantage partagée avec nos frères du continent dans un esprit de coopération, de complémentarité et de solidarité panafricaine. L'Algérie demeure convaincue que toute menace sanitaire dans un pays particulier sur le continent est une menace globale, appelant à la solidarité des 55 États membres de l'Union africaine et des organes de l'Union africaine pour soutenir les pays en souffrance. C'est dans ce cadre que Monsieur le Président de la République, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, a répondu favorablement à l'appel de solidarité pour contenir la propagation d'Ebola et soutenir la réponse rapide aux pays affectés en annonçant une contribution financière importante à cette solidarité transmise par réponse officielle au président en exercice de l'Union africaine, le président du Burundi. Enfin, l'Algérie réaffirme son plein soutien au rôle central d'Africa CDC dans la coordination continentale et la réponse aux urgences sanitaires. Je vous remercie.
Thank you to Algeria for that commitment. I think we'll go to Liberia now. Do we have any others in Burundi? So Liberia, Burundi, sorry, I can't see that far. Could somebody help me out? Libya. So Liberia, Burundi, Libya, and South Africa. And then we'll go to the back after that. Okay. So Burundi,
Merci.
so Liberia, Burundi, Liberia, Libya, Burundi. Let's huh?
Burundi.
And South Africa. Let's do this and we'll go around. Yeah? Let's make it quick. You have a minute and a half. Over to you, Liberia.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Excellencies, Honorable Ministers of Health and Finance, our partners. I bring you greetings from Liberia, from the Ministry of Health. I'm Dr. Tia Esmo. I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Officer. As a country, Liberia, we want to first appreciate the efforts of the World Health Organization, the Africa CDC, all of our partners in the fight against the outbreak in DR Congo and Uganda. Quickly to answer the two questions, how do we stop this outbreak? As a country, we believe that continuous community engagement is key. What we are seeing in DR Congo is that there is lack of trust from the community. There are a lot of myths surrounding the existence of Ebola. So in our efforts to engage the community, we need to be more proactive. And if possible, we see how we can fit in the community health workers. What role can a community health worker play in creating awareness and health promotion? As it relates to how do we prevent the outbreak from spreading, we are cognizant that preparedness cannot be separated from sustainable financing. If you look at the data that was displayed, we see that we have more pledges in billions than what we actually have to contain this virus. So as a country, we propose that governments, partners, member states of the WHO and even the Africa CDC, we need to translate these pledges to actual disbursement. By so doing, we will be able to strengthen our health systems in terms of preparedness and response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liberia. I think we'll go to Burundi, and after Burundi, we'll go to Libya. Burundi, over to you.
Merci pour la parole, chers collègues ministres. La situation liée à la maladie à virus Ebola, Bondiboyo, nous rappelle que la préparation aux urgences sanitaires ne peut jamais être une préoccupation secondaire. Et pour le Burundi, pays voisin de la RDC, Cette situation nous impose une vigilance particulière et une préoccupation permanente. Sous le leadership du gouvernement, nous avons renforcé notre surveillance et notre préparation, notamment au niveau des principaux points d'entrée, avec un accent sur la détection précoce, la préparation des formations sanitaires, les capacités de réponse rapide, la prévention et le contrôle des infections et la communication sur les risques. Nous avons également organisé des exercices de simulation de riposte à Ebola, notamment à Gatumba, point d'entrée crucial à notre frontière avec la RDC, afin de tester nos capacités opérationnelles et nos mécanismes de coordination. Nous apprécions à sa juste valeur l'accompagnement d'Africa CDC et de l'OMS, ainsi que l'appui de nos partenaires financiers et techniques, l'accompagnement de nos partenaires techniques et financiers, avec une mention particulière à la Banque mondiale qui contribue au renforcement de nos capacités nationales. Et pour le Burundi, 3 enseignements sont essentiels. Et premièrement, la préparation doit être renforcée avant l'apparition des épidémies et bénéficier d'un financement prévisible. Et deuxièmement, les menaces transfrontalières exigent une surveillance et une coordination transfrontalière renforcée, ainsi qu'un partage rapide de l'information. Et troisièmement, l'Afrique doit renforcer sa capacité à accéder rapidement aux vaccins, diagnostics et traitements, mais également à conduire ses propres recherches et essais cliniques lors des urgences sanitaires. Le Burundi donc réaffirme son engagement à travailler avec Africa CDC, OMS et d'autres pays voisins et l'ensemble de nos partenaires pour une Afrique mieux préparée, mieux coordonnée et davantage capable de répondre elle-même aux urgences sanitaires. Merci.
Thank you very much, Burundi. We'll hear from Libya and followed by South Africa. Libya, over to you.
شكرا معالي الوزير سير هذه الجلسة. وأود في البداية أن نعرب عن الشكر والتقدير لمركز مكافحة الأمراض للدعوة لعقد هذا الاجتماع الهام. Is it available?
Yes, we hear the interpreter. Please go ahead.
شكرا السيد مدير الجلسة معالي الوزير. كنت أقول ونود أن نشكر إدارة المركز على إتاحة هذه الفرصة والدعوة لعقد هذا الاجتماع الهام ليجمع الوزراء الأفارقة المسؤولين عن الصحة في هذا التوقيت الهام الذي نسعى فيه إلى تعزيز الموقف الأفريقي ليس صحيا فقط وإنما على المستوى السياسي. كما نعلم أن هذا التحدي فيما يتعلق بتعزيز الموقف الأفريقي والقطاع الصحي في أفريقيا هو تحدي منذ فترة طويلة، وهذا يدعونا إلى الاستفادة من التجارب والمواقف. أثبتت التجارب المتكررة أن الأوبئة لا تعترف بالحدود، وأن الأمن الصحي جزء لا يتجزأ من الأمن الأفريقي ومن استقرار قارتنا ومسار التنمية. فيما يصيب أو تتعرض له الدولة لا يمكن أن يبقى منفصلا عن باقي الدول، بل يمثل تحدي لكافة الدول ويستدعي استجابة جماعية تقوم على التضامن والتنسيق وتبادل الخبرات، وهذا ما أكده الزملاء والوزراء المتحدثين منذ بداية هذا الاجتماع. السادة، تؤكد ليبيا فيما يتعلق وما نراه إجابة أو التفاعل مع الطرح من أسئلة في هذه الجلسة التأكيد على أهمية البناء على ما تم اعتماده من مواقف أفريقية والتزامات على المستوى القاري. يعني هناك قمم، هناك اجتماعات على مستوى الوزراء، سواء كان وزراء الصحة أو المجلس التنفيذي أو القمة، اتخذت قرارات، وآخرها قمة الصحة التي عقدت في يوليو الماضي، وقمة مكافحة إيبولا التي عقدت في شهر يونيو الماضي، وهذا موقف محدث أو موقف حديث لما تريده أفريقيا، سواء فيما يتعلق بالتحديات انتشار الأوبئة أو ما يتعلق بإصلاح المنظومة الدولية. نحن لدينا موقف متصل وموقف محدد، ولكن كيف نقوم بتنفيذ ما اتخذناه في هذه القمم في المنظومة الدولية على مستوى التنسيق وعلى مستوى توحيد وجهات النظر وعلى مستوى متابعة هذه التحديات. الشق الثاني فيما يتعلق بإصلاح المنظومة. إصلاح المنظومة لأفريقيا موقفه واضح. يجب أن يكون هناك إصلاح شامل للمنظومة الدولية، لأن كما تعلمون المسار الدولي فيما يتعلق بالتنمية وما يتعلق بالتحديات، خاصة التحديات التي يواجهها العالم الثالث وخاصة في قطاع الصحة، لا تتطلب فقط إصلاح المنظومة الدولية في قطاع الصحة، وإنما إصلاح شامل للمنظومة الدولية سياسيا وماليا واقتصاديا، إنها كلها مرتبطة بهذا الأمر. الشق الثالث، أعتقد أن التحدي الكبير الذي نواجهه والذي ليبيا تدفع في اتجاهه، وهو موقف تؤكد عليه كافة الدول الأعضاء في الاتحاد الأفريقي، هو مسألة التمويل. نحن لا نحتاج إلى تمويل، ولكن نحتاج إلى مؤسسات مالية أفريقية. يجب أن تكون لدينا بداية في التعبير عن الالتزام في الموقف السياسي، وبالتالي ليبيا تؤكد، وكما قلت وهو موقف لكافة الدول الأعضاء، بأن تكون لدينا مؤسسات مالية أفريقية ذات استقلالية وذات ملكية أفريقية، وذات ملكية فعلا معبرة عن الوضع الأفريقي بدون شروط قد تفرض على القارة في المنظومة الدولية. وشكرا.
Thank you very much, a colleague from Libya. I think we'll go to South Africa at this point. I know Senegal was asking, but we asked the Senegal defer their question to the next session, if that's okay. So let's hear from South Africa, and we'll wrap this session up. South Africa.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the floor. Once again, we make our presentations on behalf of His Excellency, the Minister of Health, but also for this particular section, we would also just like to invoke the leadership of His Excellency President Ramaphosa, who is the champion on PPPR on the continent. So firstly, we'd like to commend the sterling work of the Africa CDC and the WHO for the tireless work to respond to and contain the current Ebola outbreak. I don't think it's celebrated enough that indeed Uganda has declared the outbreak over, and that's truly, truly remarkable that has been achieved, and it should really be commended and celebrated. And it also does indicate that there are indeed green shoots of progress that we are seeing in Africa. And these have been built by the institutions that we have built together, as well as the capacities that we've built together since COVID, under the leadership of the heads of state, including His Excellency President Ramaphosa. So we're really very proud of that. But we do recognize that there's been a joint effort by countries, global health institutions, and a range of implementing partners who have aligned behind the joint continental response strategy. We also reiterate our solidarity as demonstrated by President Ramaphosa's visit to the DRC a number of weeks ago. But also just to answer one of the questions about how we can control is that we do have the expertise and the willingness of the academic community, the scientific community. In South Africa, we know that our institutions, our R&D institutions, the NICD, the SAPRA, and as well as institutions like Afrigen are very much participating on the issues of the R&D of medical countermeasures. And I think we haven't emphasized enough that Yes, the issue of community trust is very, very important, but of course, the containment of this outbreak is the game changer will be when we do have the medical countermeasures in place. So building trust is going to be very important because by the time we deploy the medical countermeasures, the community must be able to accept them, but we must remain very much focused on R&D and ensuring that the biotech does come from Africa and is in fact deployed by Africa. Now, I'm making this point because we were very disappointed recently. Afrigen put up its hand to participate in a consortium, and they didn't get the financing from one of the global health institutions. So this remains a perennial issue that we say that we want our global health, our continental institutions to produce medical countermeasures, but they do not get the financing. And I think many of the colleagues here have pointed a little bit to that, and we will touch on that as well. We are calling for stakeholders to support African-led tech and procurement solutions to ensure that continent's local manufacturing agenda is advanced as we respond to the Ebola crisis. Now, finally, on PPPR, as many have said, when it comes to PPPR, our focus should remain on health system strengthening, health workforce development, and local manufacturing. And these are not capacities that can be adequately optimized during a crisis, but should be established in the interpandemic periods. Finally, on the financing issue, domestic resource mobilization is now no longer an option, but it is something that we all have to work together with ministries of finance, and particularly with a focus on day zero financing solutions, including the fact that we do need to engage our public finance management systems and laws, because at the moment, one, they do not have the capacity to deploy day zero, but two, even when you do raise the funding, we often are blocked by PFMAs in being able to rapidly absorb emergency financing. And so these are aspects aspects of day zero financing that we would really need to pay attention to, and are essential principles for resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, South Africa. Big thanks to all of the contributing ministers and delegations. Clearly, this is a very important issue for all of us. Clearly, also what we see in the DRC is not over yet. It's still raging to some extent, and I think there are clear lessons for us. From some of the deliberations today, we heard the role of communities. This is public health. Public health means the public has a capital P in interventions. I think even as we look at long-term interventions with countermeasures, with vaccines, with all of these, we have to deploy as much resources within the communities to be able to have the adequate response. It's also very easy to quantify the response in the biomedical interventions. You could count the number of beds, count the number of PPEs, you could count how much vaccine you have, how much countermeasures, and put a dollar value to it. What we haven't been able to do effectively is to put a dollar value on community engagement as an essential ingredient for response. It shouldn't be an afterthought. And so I think we heard some of the discussions from our Liberian colleague and from our Nigerian Sahel colleagues about how vital that is in the interventions. We also looked at what neighboring countries are doing in terms of readiness and being able to prepare to respond. And I think we also saw what are some of the long-term planning issues. It's very obvious that outbreak preparedness and response is not an event. It is something that we have to constantly be working on and improving so that we're able to be ready and not chase the virus, but be ahead of the virus. So thank you for all of your contributions today. It was a very lively discussions. And at the end, we are very clear that the WHO and the Africa CDC have a pivotal role to play in pulling all of these together, in pulling us all countries together as we mount effective prevention, preparedness, and response. Thank you very much.
Chair, with your permission, I want just to inform all excellencies and colleagues who are here that Tedros, Janabi, and myself, we just released in Al Jazeera an op-ed and on the 100 days of this outbreak. I think the link can be shared. It's important to see how we are working together to support the response. It's just out a few minutes ago.
Thank you, DG. So it's over to you for the next session. Yeah.
Good afternoon, colleagues, excellencies, delegates. The next session is on local manufacturing of health products. I know we've talked about this agenda for some time. My name is Omar, Dr. Omar Al-Bush, Director, the Health Diplomacy Minister of Health, Kenya, and I'm privileged to speak here as a person from the country where our President, His Excellency, William Ruto, is the AU champion for local manufacturing. We hear a lot and see a lot of figures on local manufacturing, and especially on essential medicines and vaccines. There are several data. Let me quote one of them. I know we hear of 1% of vaccines in Africa are locally manufactured, yet Africa consumes 25% of vaccines globally. We also hear of Africa manufacturing 30% or less of essential medicines and importing 70%. So one of the sovereignty agenda that we go through is the issue of strengthening local manufacturing. And this came from the not so pleasant experience during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll take this opportunity now to start off this session to hear from our colleagues from Africa CDC. We have Dr. Jean-Marie Okobele to give us the first presentation on the status of local manufacturing in Africa. Please welcome Dr. Jean-Marie Okobele.
Excellencies, Ministers of Health, distinguished participants, colleagues, I think the chair of the session has facilitated the introductory remark that I was going to make, framing what we mean, what we intend to do through this important agenda. The DG of Africa CDC keeps referring to this agenda as, one of the critical elements of the second independence of Africa. What I'm going to do is just communicate a few messages on behalf of my colleagues at Africa CDC. First one is to say that we have capacity, manufacturing capacity in Africa. Our database shows that we have more than 550 manufacturers established across several countries on the continent. But when you talk with manufacturers, what they tell you in terms of what is required for further investment is what is represented in this slide. There are two gold standards, two components that they keep referring to. One is that we should ensure that there is a credible market, sustainable market on the continent. And the second is the need to have a very clear, trusted quality assurance system, a continental regulatory system that helps to ensure that the products that are used on the continent, produced in the continent, of assured quality. And the African Pool Procurement Mechanism, APPM, is what helps us to address the first point, the market. Through the APPM, which is a market shaping tool, we can aggregate demand and can facilitate what our manufacturers want to see in terms of who will buy, what volume, and so on and so forth. And this needs to be done on a sustainable basis, as I said. On the other hand, we have AMA as our agency that has been established to help us to have a strong regulatory system on the continent, working to ensure that our national regulatory authorities, especially in the producing countries, have all the means to ensure that quality standards are kept, but also helping all countries to have adequate system, including for pharmacovigilance. If we have those two gold standards, as shown here, we will see acceleration in investment for R&D, for financing, for workforce, for tech transfer, all those critical ecosystems elements that help us to accelerate and to improve on our local manufacturing agenda. A lot has been said, the previous sessions regarding the lessons learned at this point in time, with regard to the ongoing Ebola outbreak in the DRC and in Uganda. We have seen, several elements of the response that are not so well established at this point in time because of the gaps in our preparation. And those gaps can be described across the value chain that is shown on this slide with regard to regulatory and ethical delays with regard when one talks about medical countermeasures, limitation in our ability to have clinical trials for medical countermeasures, the financing bottleneck, the fragmented data system, and the community gaps that we just heard. And I would like to come back on this slide to stress the importance of research and development as a critical element in the continuum of local manufacturing. Our colleague from South Africa just talked nicely about it, and I think we need to keep that in mind and invest as much as we can. And this is my final slide, Mr. Chair, is to bring to the attention of the ministers present here and the delegates from countries that for us to have the two gold standards I referred to in place, we need guidance from you as to how we can accelerate the signing of the MOUs so that, the African Pool Procurement Mechanism can be established and function quickly as soon as possible. On the other hand, the same for the AMA. To what extent can the signing and ratification of the AMA Treaty be accelerated so that all countries, can contribute and benefit also from the continental harmonization of regulatory system. So with that, I will give the floor back to you, Mr. Chair, so that we can have the inputs that we need to accelerate this agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okobwele. Colleagues, Excellencies, I think we've seen two items that Dr. Okobwele has put in front of us. One is acceleration of the APPM MOU. The second one is acceleration of a treaty, the African Medicine Agency Treaty. I assume that the MOU should be easier to handle than the treaty. So it will be good because the treaty, has processes, internal processes. So my assumption is the APPM MOU is going on very well. Africa CDC colleague can confirm. I hope we are almost approaching 100% signing before we go to the treaty signing. Before I open the floor, we have a colleague online, Prof. Alex Dodo, Senior Advisor to the Director General Africa CDC on the subject of Africa Medicine Agency Treaty. Prof. Alex, are you there?
Can you hear me, please?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank the Director General of the Africa CDC, Dr. Kasia and his team, for the wonderful work done so far. And I'll follow on from where Dr. Okobelo left off. As we said, in this pandemic, the African Medicines Agency has been able to do two things. One, in review of clinical trials application, the AMA has supported, together with DRC and also South Sudan, in reviewing the existing protocols and specifically the Uganda, their ethics committees, and we had a successful protocol approved. For both Uganda and DRC, AMA has made available support for safety monitoring of all countermeasures. I bring these two to show the benefits that AMA, together with Africa CDC, are bringing to African countries using African expertise. And as we roll out the Evibo vaccine, AMA has approached DRC, and DRC has accepted that all vaccines rolled out will be monitored using AfriVigilance, an African-led safety monitoring platform, to ensure that we have evidence, one, of the safety or the continuous safety of Evibo, as well as its effectiveness. So what next is that there are 55 countries in Africa, 33 have ratified the AMA Treaty. We plead for the remaining 22 to ratify the treaty because it allows us to speak with one voice. In relation to the African pool procurement mechanism, we are working with Africa CDC to ensure that an African Medicines Authority quality assurance procedure will be sufficient for African countries to purchase and procure products under the African pool procurement mechanism. We have already spoken to WHO, and there's alignment that a continent does have capacity, and as we convene this capacity, we should be able to support our ministers and our head of states in delivering the medical countermeasures and provide quality assurance, which will be world-class as expected. So thank you very much, and we are happy to receive any comments or questions and to continue the collaboration with Africa CDC to complement their efforts in order to support African countries to be able to do what we must do for our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Alex Dodo. I think some good figures there. So far, achievements of the AMA include clinical trials, protocols for this outbreak, and safety monitoring of countermeasures, as mentioned by Prof. Dodo. So I think there's been achievement with this new structure that we are setting up. So I want to open now to the team here, Excellencies. Prof. Dodo said we have 55 countries. For Africa Medicine Agencies, only 33 countries out of the 55 have ratified the treaty. Approximately 67%, I think, or 60% of the countries have ratified the treaty. And also, I'm sure the figures for the African pool procurement mechanisms could be the same. So the question is, how can we accelerate the signing by the other 22 countries? Is there a reason why not all of us are signing up to these two mechanisms? I would like to open it up here. Anybody who wants to give the first intervention? Okay, I can see South Africa. South Africa here. You have the mic, South Africa.
Thank you. Are there no other ministers maybe who want to go first?
Just go ahead. There's one intervention, Minister, but virtually.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Lwazi Manzi. I'm from the Office of President Ramaphosa dealing with regional health. I think I just want to say two quick things. I will start with the port procurement mechanism. We were very fortunate and where's Dr. Kitinji? There he is. Dr. Kitinji is one of the members of the PPPR Commission. Before President Ruto took over as the champion, and we're very, very grateful for his leadership. He's been absolutely incredible. But the PPPR Commission dealt with these issues of the port procurement mechanism. So we've always been quite insistent that this should be the mechanism by which Africa pools and pools the 1.2 billion. But having said that, I do want to say that the SADC region recently also adopted the SADC port procurement mechanism. So I think, all the sub-regions, they have their prerogative to establish port procurement mechanisms, and probably it's a good thing in that, the coordinated negotiations, they help to bring down the prices. However, given the high competitiveness of port procurement mechanisms and the fact that there are other port procurement mechanisms in other regions as well as, of course, global ones, it will be essential to consider the fact that the 1.2, 1.3 billion strong, potential of pooling in the entire continent is something that we must prioritize. So I think one thing that we just like to say to Africa CDC and to other NEPAD is indeed that we should ensure that there should be very good coordination between all of these port procurement mechanisms, and that there is, everybody knows what their role is on the issue of pooling. We do have the Platform for Harmonized Africa Manufacturing, which is supposed to bring together all of these entities, bring together the ministers, particularly those ministers that are manufacturing, precisely so that our coordination is very, very tight and ensures that we are able to realize efficiency gains. So this is what we would just say with regard to the port procurement mechanism. And as the chairs of the Global Leaders Network, of which Kenya, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Tanzania are members. And again, we really want to commend the countries for their leadership in dealing with women, children, and adolescent health. We're particularly excited that the port procurement mechanism, Africa port procurement mechanism, will prioritize RMNCH commodities, which we know in this continent is a particular a challenge in terms of procure, especially the latest technologies. So we encourage this, and we say that please do maintain this prioritization. On EMA, I must be very honest and say we are one of the countries that hasn't ratified the treaty, as much as we've been pushing for it. But I'll tell you why. It's because there is an impression, well, it's not an impression, of course, it is the case, that, well, the treaty has come into force. We've established EMA, so what's the urgency? And I won't lie, in South Africa, we actually had EMA on our roster just before G20, then it got pushed back by G20, then it's been pushed back by other things because there isn't that sense of urgency or priority that the outstanding countries have in terms of ratifying the EMA Treaty. So in this regard, I would suggest that we really engage parliaments, either through their parliamentary caucuses or parliamentary forums, to really express why it still remains important for for all countries to actually ratify this treaty, even though it's already in force and already we have the institution established. So I think we must really engage the parliaments quite robustly and push that sense of urgency within parliaments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleague from South Africa, and for assuring us that the process of getting South Africa on board on the AMA is really under consideration. Next, we have one colleague online. I'm seeing a hand up behind there. Liberia is also here. Let me invite a colleague from Ghana who is joining virtually. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Excellencies, Head of State and Governments present. I bring warm greetings from the government of the good people of Ghana. I wish to commend the African Union and the African CDC and WHO for convening us at this moment when the continent is confronted with a powerful reminder that health security is inseparable from national security, economic security, and African health sovereignty. Excellencies, Africa has learned the lessons from Ebola, COVID, Mpox, and other health emergencies. As Ghana, we would like to place the following proposals before the committee. First, establish a strong and more sustainable African financing architecture for health security, combining increased domestic investments with predictable international financing. Second, strengthen African CDC as the continent's principal technical and operational institutions for epidemic intelligence, preparedness, and response. Third, establish stronger mechanisms for regional stockpiling and pool procurement for vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics, and personal protective equipment. Fourth, accelerate implementation of African Union agenda for local manufacturing for vaccines, diagnostic, and therapeutics. Fifth, establish and finance African clinical trials network that can rapidly pivot from routine research to emergency trial during outbreaks. Seventh, strengthen cross-border surveillance and response, particularly along major population movement corridors. And ninth, make pandemic preparedness a permanent component of the health system strengthening rather than standalone emergency programs. Thank you for your attention. Let us use this experience to strengthen a global health architecture in which Africa is not only a recipient of health technology and interventions, but also a partner in their development, production, and deployment. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, State Minister Ghana, and we appreciate Ghana's leadership also in the Accra Research Initiative.
And for introduction, I am Dr. Grace Ayensu Dankwa, the Deputy Minister of Health for Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have colleague intervention from Senegal. Senegal, if you are here, please go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Enfin, le Sénégal prend la parole. On comprend que nous sommes très loin sur la liste alphabétique et nous sommes au fond de la salle, ce qui fait que je demande la parole depuis le départ. Mais merci de nous donner la parole. Je suis le médecin lieutenant-colonel Tin Youssouf. Je suis le directeur général de la santé du Sénégal, représentant aujourd'hui le ministre de la Santé et de l'Hygiène publique. Je voudrais, à l'entame de mon propos, vous transmettre ces salutations les plus cordiales, le docteur AHLMC, qui réaffirme l'engagement du Sénégal aux côtés d'Africa CDC, mais également de l'Union africaine. La réforme de l'architecture de la santé mondiale n'est pas simplement une question de gouvernance administrative. C'est un impératif de souveraineté. Alors, le Sénégal plaide pour un système où l'Afrique n'est plus seulement une zone d'intervention, mais un pôle de décision et de production. Cet agenda de réforme s'inscrit dans un contexte de mutation profonde du financement et de l'aide publique au développement. Comme l'ont rappelé mes prédécesseurs, donc il est extrêmement nécessaire aujourd'hui de réaffirmer la nécessité d'un alignement étroit du processus conjoint avec les priorités et cadres politiques africains des décisions des chefs d'État et de gouvernement. Pour renforcer la cohérence, prévenir les duplications et garantir une appropriation effective par les États membres et les régions. Nous réaffirmons également l'importance d'une organisation mondiale de la santé forte, dotée de ressources adéquates au cours d'une architecture mondiale cohérente. Pour ce qui est de la réponse à l'épidémie d'Ebola, le Sénégal s'est engagé dans un processus de préparation depuis que cela a été déclaré comme urgence de santé publique, à travers l'évaluation des capacités, la tenue régulière des comités régionaux ou nationaux de gestion des épidémies, le renforcement des capacités au niveau des points d'entrée, les laboratoires, comme vous le savez, l'Institut Pasteur de Dakar, l'IRSF et le laboratoire national de santé publique. Nous avons renforcé également notre système de surveillance épidémiologique à travers un système qui est intégré de surveillance des maladies et ripostes. Et récemment, il y a moins de 2 semaines, nous avons procédé à l'évaluation externe des capacités du Sénégal dans le cadre du règlement sanitaire international. Un certain nombre de challenges ont été présentés, mais je retiens particulièrement au nom du Sénégal, je pense que l'engagement communautaire a été évoqué, mais un point fondamental sur lequel je pense que nous devions travailler, il s'agit de la paix et de la sécurité dans la zone pour faciliter le déploiement et l'intervention des agents de santé. Cette riposte d'Ebola Bundu-Bujo nous enseigne 3 choses. Premièrement, aucune architecture ne sera résiliente sans accès équitable aux contre-mesures médicales et sans autonomie africaine de production. C'est le sens aujourd'hui de l'engagement de l'Institut Pasteur de Dakar dans la production de vaccins et dans la fabrication aujourd'hui pour le continent. Deuxièmement, le financement doit être pérenne, prévisible et rapidement mobilisable. Le Sénégal est bénéficiaire du Fonds de lutte contre les pandémies, plaide pour que la revue du guichet de santé de l'IDA consacre l'appropriation pays et les biens publics régionaux. Et troisièmement, la solidarité opérationnelle interafricaine doit être formalisée. Je pense que la dernière présentation nous le rappelle, comment faire pour signer des protocoles, des MOU ou bien carrément des traités. Sur les essais cliniques et tout le reste, l'engagement du Sénégal, nous avons aujourd'hui notre agence nationale de régulation pharmaceutique qui est dotée aujourd'hui de maturité de niveau 3, dont la directrice générale est ici présente. Donc, vous me permettrez de lui passer la parole pour qu'elle intervienne dans ce sens-là. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis le docteur Aïssatou Sougou, directrice générale de l'Agence sénégalaise de réglementation pharmaceutique. Concernant le positionnement sur la production locale en Afrique, nous souhaiterions tout d'abord remercier Africa CDC et l'ensemble des partenaires, ainsi que les États membres. Le Sénégal s'est toujours inscrit dans une volonté politique forte d'adhérer. Déjà en 2007, le Sénégal avait endorsé la stratégie africaine sur le plan de développement de la production locale en Afrique. Cet engagement a tout d'abord commencé en 2007 et s'est renforcé durant l'épidémie à Covid. Il est à noter également que depuis 2020, le Sénégal a pleinement participé à l'initiative de l'OMS sur le transfert de technologies aux côtés de 4 pays, notamment le Ghana, le Rwanda et l'Afrique du Sud. On a vu également un boom industriel notable avec plus de 10 nouveaux fabricants installés au Sénégal, notamment sur la bioproduction, les biosimilaires et les vaccins. Nous avons notamment l'Institut Pasteur, bien érigé sur la production vaccinale, et également l'IRSF. Cependant, ce que nous notons également, c'est qu'il est à questionner la viabilité financière de ces industries. Aujourd'hui, bien que plusieurs producteurs ont vu le jour en Afrique, il est difficile pour eux de pénétrer pleinement ce marché-là. Certes, nous produisons en Afrique, mais consommons-nous également en Afrique? Là est notre question. Nous voulons attirer l'attention de l'ensemble des partenaires, ainsi qu'Africa CDC, sur cette question qui est devenue forte. Nous saluons l'initiative du APP, qui représente une porte de solution. Et nous voulons également lever l'attention sur le retour sur investissement attendu de tous ces mécanismes-là. En considérant l'Agence de médecine africaine, le Sénégal a ratifié le traité depuis 2021. Ce que nous souhaitons aujourd'hui, c'est de renforcer les opérations au niveau de l'Agence de médecine africaine. La plupart des entrées de vaccins sont sur la base du programme de préqualification de l'OMS. Il serait temps également de voir un mécanisme similaire être érigé au niveau de l'Afrique, abrité par l'Union africaine, pour nous permettre également d'avoir une pénétration plus forte de ces vaccins-là et une meilleure reconnaissance. Des efforts monumentaux ont été faits, notamment au niveau du capital humain, de renforcement de nos infrastructures. Et plus de 9 pays ont vu une agence forte de réglementation pharmaceutique mise en place, définie comme stable et mature par l'OMS. Ces agences, notamment, font des autorisations de mise sur le marché avec une vue sur la reconnaissance mutuelle, aussi bien au niveau des communautés économiques, mais au niveau de l'AMA. Il nous faudrait renforcer ça par un retour sur investissement plus fort et plus pérenne en ce sens-là. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Senegal, and apologies for not seeing you. You know, Kenya, we are on the eastern tip of Africa, and you're on the western tip. That could have affected my visibility. So next, I think I have my neighbor here, Secretariat, who has really nudged me to give him half a minute. I'll take that decision as the chair to give my colleague from Liberia 1 minute.
Thank you. As it relates to the African Medicines Agency Treaty, sadly, Liberia is one of the countries that have not yet signed. And we know how important this is. But I think I have 2 recommendations for the AMA. One would be for the African Medicine Agency to engage the Ministry of Health and the Medicines and Health Product Regulatory Authority of member states to see what the issues are and how well this country can come up to signing this important document, and not just to sign, but to actualize the implementation of the things that are embedded in the treaty. The AMA also have to have continuous engagement with these institutions. If possible, you can have focal points of the African Medicine Agency in the member states that will work closely with the continental body in serving as advocates and pushing some of the agenda of the AMA at the country level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleague from Liberia. I think due to the interest of time, Secretariat has urged me to hand over the session. I want to thank you all for your input. I hope we can really accelerate the signing of the MOU for APPM and the treaty for Africa Medicine Agency. And before I hand over, I want to take this opportunity also to invite all of you to an extraordinary session of the AU that will happen in Kenya between 2nd and 3rd of December. I'm sure all of you will be invited, Excellencies, and we look forward to hosting you to discuss this agenda of local manufacturing in Africa. And we hope by that time, a big percentage of the countries will have signed the APPM MOU and the Africa Medicine Agency treaty. If not, then we'll do another soul searching to see why we are not moving forward. So with that, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to chair this session. And let me now hand over the chair back to His Excellency, Dr. Amadou Lamine Samate, Minister of Health, Gambia. Over to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my brother, for ably steering the affairs of that panel and all the very useful discussions. We've had a lot from early this afternoon to this point in time. We've heard from the ministers. We heard from the health administrators at very high levels. We heard from the technical people, the technicians, who guide the ministers, who do the actual difficult work behind the scenes to support their ministers. So it has been very, very interactive, fortunately, and that's what I guess the co-chairs and the DG expect, so that we come and discuss frankly what we think the issues are and what we also believe the solutions are. Now, we've come to another session, which is the Ministerial Guidance and Agreement on Priority Actions. Now, with this session, well, we are close to the end, is the penultimate session. We'll expect to hear from the ministers and some partners. Of course, time is limited now, but we've had speakers talk about pandemic preparedness, prevention, preparedness, response. We've had speakers talk about food procurement, the African Medicines Agency, and all the challenges. Of course, very importantly, on the agenda is the current Ebola outbreak, which needs to be dealt with decisively so that we don't continue to have people infected and we don't continue to lose our brothers and sisters, and so that it doesn't also spread. These are very, very important discussions. Of course, the Secretariat is jotting down the important points, various ideas, and where I believe they'll come up with points of consensus to put forward the vision of the high-level ministerial committee this third session. And to add to those points, at this juncture, would like to open the floor. Most of the ministers have had their interventions, but if there are other points that we want the Secretariat and the committee to take note of, to include in future discussions, the floor will be open. But we equally want to have some of our partners who are with us today. One of them is the Minister of Health of Indonesia, who will be giving the floor to contribute. And the second one, yes, Dr. Jitingi, who has been there virtually everywhere. And it is for a good reason that he's everywhere, to ensure that there is proper coordination and knowledge transfer and a host of other things that he's been doing for the people of this continent. So we'll open the floor for quick interventions. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we have you, Honorable Minister from Indonesia.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I was invited by Brother Karsea because I just actually want to listen, to see, and to understand what the African countries' requirements on the global health architecture. Because Indonesia is sit at the board of Global Fund and also Gavi, and sit at the board of Gavi, and our position is unique because we are a spin of money, but we're also donors to Gavi and Global Fund. So I participate in the meeting in the donors. I participate in the meeting also for the recipients. So I understand both views. We also sit at the board of SEPI and FINE. And personally, we are being asked by the UHE. It is a meeting between World Bank and World Health Organizations talking about the funding of the multilateral development bank globally, and also being asked by Accra Reset and also the WHO global reform agenda. So I just want to make sure that when I give an input, I understand exactly the issues that you have here. Indonesia before, we also depends on grant. We receive around 300 million to 400 million every year. But starting 2 years ago, because I'm also a friend of the World Bank president, we both came from the banking sector. We increase our funding from the development bank up to 1 billion every year. And maybe next year, it will increase to 1.5 billion every year. And that is outside of my annual budget, which is around 7 billion every year. So that accelerates the development of the healthcare system in the country. And we are ready to share with our African colleagues. And I can see that in Africa, we can get the most outcome of every dollar. That is my observations. So you are the countries that can get the most outcome result of the dollars. So I strongly believe in it. And I will try to convince wherever I'm being asked or Indonesia being asked that Africa is where the resources should be channeled into. The second, I heard also about, surprisingly, the health sovereignty. My friends talking about health sovereignty. And Indonesia and Africa has a long history working together on sovereignty, but not on health, but on political sovereignty. Back in 1955, the Bandung Asia Africa Conference, where African leaders with Asian leaders sit together and inspire many countries to have their own political independence, political sovereignty. So it has been 70 years ago. But to our surprise, after 70 years, we got the political sovereignty, but not the health sovereignty. So I also understand that Lusaka agenda, what happened in Zambia, in Africa. I'm also actively involved in Accra, is a city in Ghana, I realized. So I saw the momentum for the health sovereignty initiative. It started in Africa. So I think this is the time you seize the opportunity. You seize the opportunity. And from my perspective, listening up to you, health sovereignty is not only in healthcare delivery, it's not only in local manufacturing, it is going into health financing sovereignty, but also data sovereignty, research and development sovereignty, and also technological sovereignty. Indonesia now is heavily involved with Senegal to transfer our vaccine technology, not only fill and finish, but also drug substance and drug products. So starting from research and development, we are working with Pakistan to do the same thing, because we believe, a country with population above 100 million should have their own vaccine. Indonesia had very bad experience. We have our vaccine manufacturing, but during COVID, we cannot produce the COVID-19, and 280 million people, late in receiving the vaccine. So I strongly believe vaccine is, during pandemic, is a public good. It shouldn't be treated as a private good. So talking about this sovereignty, I would like to suggest, why don't we follow our previous leaders? Because sovereignty, you cannot do it alone. You have to do it together. Bandung, the African and Asian leaders sit together. I think if you want to make Lusaka, Accra, or another African initiative, I think this is the best time for you to sit together with the global South country to seize this health sovereignty. This is not something that we can do alone. This is something that we can do together. This is not something that we can do exclusively. Our initiative, the B initiative, the WHO initiative, the Accra Research Initiative, we have to do it inclusively. And this is not something that we can approach as a program. It's my program, your programs. We have to approach this as a movement where everybody feels that they own this initiative. I still love to hear the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. So congratulations and thank you for inviting me.
So thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that insight. Very useful. At this juncture, I invite Dr. Jitingi Jitahi, who is the Group CEO of AMREF. Dr. Jitingi, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and thanks to Brother DG Kasea and Africa CDC for inviting me here. I manage AMREF Health Africa as the Group CEO, but for this conversation, I'm also Deputy Chair of the Board of CEPI, so I can also speak on behalf of CEPI, and other than what was mentioned by Loazi on the Commission for PPPR. On the CEPI side, I would like to say it's not been easy, but
de dire que certes, ça n'était pas facile, mais nous sommes plus que déterminés à maintenant.
And in this particular response of the Bundibugyo Ebola response, we have ensured that we are using existing continental network to accelerate clinical trials, working very closely with Africa CDC and all the other agencies that are involved. It's not been easy in terms of financing. We are in the process of replenishment of our strategy CEPI 3.0, but we believe that we will continue this spirit, and the management and the board are completely committed. As you may have seen, by the way, we've just announced the appointment of a new CEO, and the new CEO of CEPI is a Nigerian gentleman called Professor Ibrahim, who is currently provost of the University of College London. So we are getting closer and closer to making sure that we have proper representation across these agencies. Now, the 2 points I wanted to make is, one, and have been referred to by the ministers, is the importance of reforming the global health bottom up. I think we have all been stuck on trying to reform it top down, and that will take forever because many of the people in those spaces are the same ones trying to protect their positions. But I think that if the leadership here, the leadership of the ministers and the countries in this continent, as has been demonstrated in the position Africa has taken on the PABS, if we can actually result in a position through the high-level ministerial committee where bottom-up reform of the global health agenda is a key pillar of this reform, that would be great. And we've seen, for example, in the PABS that bottom-up works. So we can demand what we want the global health architecture to do in our countries. And if they don't, we can put our foot down as long as it is continentally driven. It's not ministry by ministry, not country by country. So we'd like to ask to see how we can support the ministries to drive a bottom-up reform of this agenda. And in this, I can just give a quick example. We've seen, for example, many countries here have signed the bilateral agreements with the US government, as was mentioned in the meeting that was hosted by DG Africa CDC in Geneva. The point was made that even with this conversation, the US government still walked into countries one by one, signed MOUs one by one, that did not have content of principles. So I think there is importance for Africa CDC to coordinate countries for common positions for a bottom-up reform of the global health agenda. And we've seen now, I'm informed that even with the bilateral agreements, the US government is unilaterally appointing implementing partners who are all, from that country to implement the programs under the MOUs that are co-investments. So ministries of health need to put their foot down to have a say in the way these bilateral agreements are implemented in their countries. But let me come to the second point and my last one, that we talked about community trust. And indeed, community trust is a missing part in this particular response and in the future ones. And I think that when you look at the financing, building community adherence and community participation is the least funded of all of them. Most of the money, of course, is in the medical countermeasures. But I think we need to see how to bring more resources to the building community trusts, because community trust communities are saying that we are all there to chase the virus. We are not actually having a human-centered approach. We are interested in the virus, which is important, but the communities have other needs. They live with the virus, and it should be the first point of response. And the question around the day zero that was raised, day zero financing that was raised by Loazi, and I will combine this comment together with the pool procurement. I think we have one major challenge. If we cannot mobilize day zero response, then the partners that come from outside are the ones actually who do the zero response. I'll give an example of dignified burial. Now, when you look at dignified burial, the partners who come with the money are the ones who mobilize the experts for dignified burial, rather than community leaders. If a dignified burial is led by the local religious leader, is led by the local chief, the local leader, people see their own leaders carrying the coffin, not people who are hired by the partners who came to support. But we couldn't do that because we did not have the zero financing. And therefore, when all the good partners like Red Cross and others come, and they're good partners, but when they come, they mobilize what they know best. And therefore, the people delivering the coffin are not known. They are not members of the community. The zero financing would enable this to be a route to buying community trust to begin with. But is also, this is tied to how we manage the public financial management policies that are in our countries. And I'll mention that even when it comes to pool procurement excellencies, one of the challenges we find is that despite the best efforts, countries still have procurement rules. And those procurement rules are coded in the Public Financial Management Acts. So when I am a procurement director for country A, and there's a pool procurement, how do I purchase from it if the current regulations in my country don't allow me to? So basically with these two, I'm trying to ask and following up on what Loazi said, that this process needs to have high level of engagement with the PFM, with the Public Financial Management in the countries. And I'm wondering, with the leadership of the Africa Union and Africa CDC, how does the high-level ministerial committee and also AMA and all these others engage with the PFM? Because if we don't engage with the Public Financial Management Acts, we are only going to discuss the technical health side, but we will never get these things resolved because the procurement director in Tanzania will never procure from the pool procurement until the local regulations of procurement enable them to. And this need to be done continentally and probably to develop an off-the-shelf support for countries on PFM reforms that enable day zero financing to build community trust by seeing their own government responding fast, and also to enable reform of the local procurement processes to be able to purchase from pool procurements to create the demand and the market that is needed. I would like to stop there. Thank you very much, Excellencies, for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you, DG Kasea, for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gitingi. Certainly, that is the fact. Harmonizing the pool procurement mechanisms with local procurement rules can be a challenge, because quite a number of countries have their own local procurement mechanisms, and those are really in the laws of the countries. And procurement, as we know, is so sensitive that no one wants to do it outside what the laws allow. So some of these things will certainly need amendments to some of the local financial rules and regulations. Thank you for bringing that up. Well, at this juncture, we've come very close to the end. So the discussions were very, very useful and interactive. At this juncture, we'll invite the Director General, Dr. Jean Cassier, who will be giving the remarks on the next steps and also giving the closing remarks on behalf of the co-chairs. DG, thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Let me thank all ministers and the delegate who came. To be honest, I was even surprised that the Minister of South Sudan didn't speak. Well, he's a lawyer. He likes to speak too much. And I know the Minister of Congo Brazza is quiet, but when we'll meet, he will speak. You know, we have so many ministers today, they were listening because the week just started. And we know we'll have substantive conversations. Let me first thank my brother, Minister Budi. You know, when we talk about respect starts with sovereignty, but sovereignty starts with responsibility. I was checking in the website, in the ministry, $15 billion allocated in 2026 to the health sector in Indonesia. Then you can imagine when Minister Budi now wants to negotiate with partners, they know that is not coming from nowhere. It's critical for us in Africa to start to provide funding to our health systems. Think about, yes, you will tell me Indonesia is a country of 288 million people. Yes. Okay, let us divide it by half for some countries, even by 3. Can I also say if we divide it by 3, the budget will be also divided by 3? We are not there. This is why sometimes conversations we have with our partners is so difficult. My brother Gitinji is saying about one of the partners who decide to appoint even implementing partners for the funding they are giving to Africa, some African countries, without consultation. And one of the guys in Brazil was saying, it's our money, it has deciding we'll appoint who we want to be implementing partner for this program. You know, it's also our responsibility as African countries to come together to say, this is what we want. And I have to say to ministers and even to head of state, sometimes learning to say no, it will make you respected. Because we in Africa CDC, we learned to say no to a number of partners, and they came back with a lot of respect. But if we are just accepting everything that they are doing, we can continue to complain. I come from DRC. You can imagine, this is public because 4 days ago, I was in CNN. I think you saw the comment I made, even when they asked about the US contribution to Ebola. I say, yes, $400 million, but we don't know where is this money. Because the president of DRC, the minister of DRC, and my colleagues, the country director of Africa CDC in DRC, all of them, they don't know where is this money. You can imagine DRC plan was 252 million. The US, they are contributing 400 million. We could, by knowing who's getting this money, where the money is going, we could even stop this outbreak. I think this is the, those who are listening, RFI, you will know, you will listen today, I say to RFI, a government doesn't complain, a government acts. Because if you are ministers in your countries, you have partners coming, behaving. You know, I was saying to the president of DRC, give them persona non grata. They will start to respect you. Sometimes we are complaining. I'm telling you, not because I'm a naive person, but I'm telling you because I'm responsible and I know what I'm talking about. And I know in some countries, look, my own experience when more than 17 or 18 years ago, I was working for Gavi. I flew to Kigali, to Rwanda. The minister I met at that moment, his name was, I think he's still alive, Sezibera. I came because I had some money from Gavi to Rwanda. I say, Minister, this is what you'll do, A, B, C. This is money. You know, I spoke for 30 minutes. Then the minister said, are you done? I said, yes. Did you read our plan? I realized that I didn't read the plan from Rwanda. Then he said, go back with your money. And I was so surprised. It was the first country telling me, go back with your money. You know what happened when I went back to Geneva? I met my CEO. I said that it was Julian at that time. I said, look, Rwanda said I have to go back with my money. And he said, who said that? I said, the minister. I said, this minister will become the board member of Gavi. Second, read their plan. Even I had what? Around 10 million. He said, you'll give them 20 million. And when I went back to Rwanda, by saying, Minister, I took them to read your plan. I see that you need money here and there. We are bringing 20 million. And the minister said, if you give 20 million, me, I'll put 30 million. You see, this one is in Africa. Are you sure, ministers who are here, a partner who comes to you to say, I need 1, 2, 3, you say, go back with your money. Are you sure that this partner will go? No, he will come back. Please, let us have this courage to say things. This is why we also think what our brother Budi said, it's critical. He didn't go extensively on that, but he managed even not to move only with grant. He took some loan. We are, as Africans, we are afraid of loan. I have to tell you to be honest. You know, my first time I get a loan, it was when I started to work in Geneva. In my country, DRC, even when you buy a house, there is no loan. You have to buy cash. I think people, you know that. If you buy car, you have to buy cash. Someone even sent me a message to say they are selling a house $8 million. If I pay cash, you can imagine how someone can pay cash $8 million. Then when I was leaving my country, I was going to work with Gavi in Geneva. I got a loan to buy my house, my car. I called my mother. My mother said, what? How can you get a loan? And if you pass on, who will pay that? Because in our culture, they cannot bury someone if he has a loan. They cannot. And the first question they are asking to people who are coming to the funerals, tell us if that person who passed on has to pay you something. If there is someone coming saying, yes, he owe me $10, $1,000, the family will come together to put money to pay you before burying the person. And this is why we are afraid of loan. But Indonesia did it. Maybe you'll have time one day, we'll invite you to explain the process. And this is also one of the issues with our local manufacturing, because most of our companies, they are looking just for grant. Grant, it's good, but grant doesn't represent anything. And we can have some concessional loans to make things moving. I think we started, I made it to leaders in SADC, and we'll continue to talk about it. This is why I invited Budi to give more information on a country from Global South that is moving and that is respected. He said they are board member of Gavi, Global Fund, CEPI, and so and so and so. Why? Because they are responsible and they are respected. We can also have this kind of aspect for this kind of status for Africa. Minister, I know based on the guidance I got from some of our leaders, they really want us to come with one voice for PABS. As you know, we need to finalize this conversation by December. We still have some issues with some of our partners, mostly on 3 or 4 areas. And we need to find a way. I got a request from Minister for Southern Africa because, as you can see, most of them, I met them in Windhoek 2 days ago. They were flying back yesterday to their country. They are landing here tonight. They wanted us to push this meeting for them to intervene. But we agreed that we'll have a special session in Berlin in October during the World Health Summit. We'll have another session in Addis in November during the CPHIA, but we'll have a closed session of ministers for mostly 2 issues. The first one, the PABS, what is the African position as we are moving to unify our voice and to know also if someone was taking, I was saying, give and take. What are we giving? What are we taking to make sure that Africa doesn't lose everything? The second one will be, there is the president of Mozambique who told me, DG, we want you to organize interview of all candidates. I think this is a great idea, ministers. When we will know all WHO candidates, Global Fund candidates, Gavi candidates, I don't know what, let us come together, listen from them. What they want to do with Africa. We are a continent receiving 70% of a grant, but Gitinji is the only, I have to make it clear, if you take all global F initiatives, Gavi, Global Fund, CEPI, United, and others, Gitinji is the only African in the board. Even he's not the chair of the board, he's the deputy chair. We don't have an African chair of the board. When Tedros will leave next year, Africa will not have someone leading one of the global F initiatives, except Boubacar, who is coming. This is why I want you to applaud for Gitinji. Because without your support, Gitinji, maybe Boubacar will not be. Where is Gitinji? He's hiding himself. Huh? He has to leave. Now we have Abubakar, who is leading CEPI. But we really need to have more Africans, because I don't think that it's an issue of competence. It's just an issue of how we come together, we strategize. I will also mention what the chair said, and also our brother Gitinji and our sister Loazi on the AMA and APPM. We need to be consistent. our leaders said we need to have the local manufacturing. They are repeating that. Now we are going to them to say, what are the 2 gold standards? Without these 2 gold standards, forget local manufacturing. And we need to continue to engage them. Some countries are saying, APPM, we need to review our legislation. But for the regional pool procurement, they are not reviewing their legislation. We need also to be consistent on these issues. And I think the chair is right. We need to have this dialogue. Some countries are signing easily because they have some flexibility. Other countries, we need to engage them more. Today, PAO in Latin America, they are doing pool procurement for all countries, all of them. ASEAN, because Indonesia is part of the ASEAN, they want also to think about how to have pool procurement. But when it comes about Africa, we start to think about other issues. I think it's time for us to mature this conversation during the meeting we'll have in October in Berlin. And we can also work with ministers to see when all candidates will be known, at what time we can start with these interviews. We want really to know, not to vote by being emotional, but to vote by knowing what is the program of these people for our continent. With that, ministers, I thank all of you. I know you have a lot of engagement. This is the first meeting of number of meetings you'll have. These are the critical elements we are picking, and I think we'll continue the conversation and we'll make Africa winning. Thank you so much, and have a great week in Addis Ababa.
Recording stopped.